then. I'm your host, SinDragonLord, aka your commissioner, your Phoenix Primals, and we are in week number 7, Global Pokemon Society Draft League. Sorry I haven't been doing these all too much over the last couple of weeks. Mostly, it's been a long couple of weeks, that's all I'll say. It's been a really long couple of weeks, haven't really felt it to be on camera much, so that's kind of the reason for that. But anyway, enough about my personal shit. Let's get on to this week. This week we got the Midvalley Meowths. So we're looking at Gouging Fire, King Gambit, Azumarill, Mienshao, Vikavolt, Oricorio Sensu, Ogerpon, Cornerstone, Piloswine, Arbok, and Cryogonal. So, right off the bat, I don't know if you guys remember the tiering video that we did, but he was ranked a very good offensive team, but lacked the defense, lacked defenses to really qualify it to be higher. And there was also the fact that he didn't really have much in the way of hazard removal. At least at the time of recording that video, he didn't have hazard removal of any sort. And he didn't really have much in the way of bulk at the start. He's made some adjustments over the last 7 weeks. He added Oricorio Sensu and Arbok and Cryogonal. He added Piloswine, and he added Mienshao instead of Breloom. So a little bit more bulk. Arbok definitely has Intimidate, which can help. Piloswine is a decent Eviolite user with Thick Fat, so it can defensively Terra and be a nuisance that way. Oricorio gets Defog, so they do have a form of hazard removal now. And Piloswine can set up rocks. Ogerpon can set up spikes if it wanted to. So they got a little bit more going for them than they did in week 1. So, yeah. Anyway, also, fun fact, in week 8, once the final trades are going to be finalized, because once the week 8 trades are done, there's no more trades for the remainder of the season. We'll be doing another tier list video, so we'll see if Mid-Valley ranks a little bit higher than he did at the start. He did fix a few things. I would rank him higher than I did before, but by how much, we'll see. So how are we going to combat this team? Well, I'm anticipating him to bring the Gouging Fire and the King Gambit, obviously. I anticipate him bringing Azumarill. Vikavolt has been a huge player for him this season. I've posted a few of his replays over the last few weeks. Oricorio Sensu, I could see him bringing that to remove rocks from Donphan potentially. And that way Ogerpon's Sturdy remains intact. He could bring Piloswine, but because I do have Skeledirge, I do have a bunch of ice types, but he would have to be really creative in his Terra type to really make a difference. Just because I have other means of dealing with Piloswine, so he'd have to get real creative with that Terra type to cover everything. But I mean, Thick Fat Piloswine could definitely put in some work. Like Terra Water would stop, or not stop, but it would really dampen my ice damage outside of Freeze Dry, of course. And fire covers from Skeledirge. So that's an option that he could do. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the team that we're going to bring ourselves. 1 second. Okay, so first things first, we are rolling with Titan. We are not running any speed investment whatsoever in the Titan, just because we outspeed everything in the snow. His speed tier is not that great. The fastest thing on his team is Ogerpon, and that can't hold a Scarf. So we don't need speed investment at all to outspeed everything on his team. So we're going all attack, all bulk. And since most of his offense is on the physical side, most of our defense is going on the physical side. And with the snow buff, that'll also help as well. So yeah, but outside of that, pretty standard stuff. You know, nothing really to write home about, just standard. So Bastiodon is making its appearance this week. The reason for this is because, like I said, a lot of his team is physical. As my cat knocks over stuff on the fucking entertainment center, that's cool. That's great. Anyway, so we're running with Bastiodon because most of his offense is physical, and Bastiodon is a really tanky boy, and especially since we're able to tear it out of its very glaring weaknesses, this should do pretty well. We have a red card, and I'm going to explain that. So the red card is for should he want to set up a belly drum with a Zoomeril, we can survive, bare minimum on sturdy, and red card it out. That way he doesn't have the belly drum boost. If King Gambit wants to like set up sword stances or get behind a substitute, we can force it out that way. We also have Roar to do that as well. We just want to make sure that we make it very difficult for him to actually be able to set up. And then we got Iron Defense, Body Press, Roar, and Metal Burst, which is basically counter and freaking Mirror Coat. So if we take any form of attack, the damage will be dealt 1.5 times in the other direction. We have Terra Fighting to boost up Body Press's damage. That way we're actually a really good offensive threat as well as a defensive one. That and the King Gambit really can't touch it. And even if he does have like brick for like for my screens, it will still be neutral with once we Terra Fighting. But Midvalley appears to be a creature of habit, and every single week he has run Sword Stance, Sucker Punch, Iron Head, and Substitute. So we're kind of banking on that, but even if he does switch it up a little bit, we'll still be fine. Then we got Dog Fan, good old Great Tusk at home. We are still rocking the Castat Berry. But I'm not running Endeavor strats this week just because if I run Endeavor with this particular set, I get hard walled by Oricorio. And I actually don't have a whole lot of good switch-ins for that. So I wanted to be able to ensure that if he does bring in Oricorio and he does lead with it, that I'm not just, sitting there with my dick in my hands, not able to do anything except set up rocks in the face of a Defogger. And then not be able to do anything else because it's immune to everything. So yeah, that's why we have knockoff. And I figured being able to knock off things like assault vests and whatnot should be pretty beneficial. Then we got Ninetales. Pretty standard set. Again, I do have a little bit more bulk. I have just enough special attack to get some KOs where I need them, and enough bulk to live something through screens. We also have Freeze Dry to be able to hit the Azumarill for super effective damage, Moonblast, and we have Encore. The reason we have Encore is because if he decides to, say, Belly Drum in my face, or set up a Sword Stance, or Substitute, I can Encore him into that move, and then he a sitting duck, and I can just keep swinging. As soon as the Encore wears off, I can just again, and he's gonna be forced to switch. So, granted, not really wanting to stay in an Iron Head necessarily, but I do like the option to be able to lock him into a setup move if he decides to get greedy. Then we got Skeledirge with heavy duty boots. So, once again, physically defensive. We have Will-O-Wisp. And we also have Unawares, of course. So if he does decide to set up with things, it's not going to do any more damage than a base attack would. So, yeah. Then, of course, with screens and all that other stuff, Skeledirge should be sticking around for a while and should be able to snowball with Torch Song. After 2 Torch Songs, Earth Power's able to take out Gouging Fire and King Gambit. But Torch Song's able to deal with pretty much everything else. One other thing, Cryogonal does technically get Rapid Spin. He does also have that option as well. So I just wanted to point that out. I didn't want anyone to think I forgot. Then lastly, we got the Scalarian Slowking, which is actually in the top 4 of the kill leaders. So Titan is number 1, Galarian Slowking is number 2 as far as the top 10 kill leaders of the league. Didn't think it was going to be Slowking, I'll be honest with you, but hey, that's just the way the cookie crumbles, as they say. So for this one, I did decide to go specially defensive just because I didn't want to have nothing to switch into the Vikavolt should he decide to bring that. Because that's basically his main special attacker. So, yeah. I figured having some special bulk, and if he does bring the Oricorio, it'd be much more beneficial to have something that can take special attacks, even if it's super effective. But yeah, Chilly Reception, Earthquake, Sludge Bomb, and Slack Off. I didn't want to have nothing for the King Gambit, which is why I'm not running Future Sight, because if I had Future Sight, it is immune to both of my stabs. So I wanted to have something to hit it with. However, I'm not going to be calm. I'm going to be sassy, I think. So to ignore the calm. It's gonna be sassy, or whatever special defense minus speed is. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the battle portion of this video right about now. All right, welcome to the battle portion. We see Cryogonal lead with the Dawn fan. So we weren't expecting Cryogonal, but it does, I guess, kind of make sense. It could potentially spin these rocks away if it wants to, but they're not going to do that. They're just going to stay in there. My Custap Berry is still intact because we're switching out the Skeledirge. The Will-O-Wisp unfortunately misses, which is a huge miss because now this Liquidation is going to do a fuck ton of damage. Now we got to switch into the Alolan Ninetales. We do have a lot more bulk, so this Snow Buff will be enough to allow us to survive on a 3-hit KO from these Liquidations. We set up the Aurora Veil just to get our screens up. And now we're taking significantly less damage from the Azumarill. We're going for a Freeze Dry, which does about 45%, about the same amount that Liquidation was doing to us. But the Citrus Berry is eaten, so that basically does mean that it kind of deters him from wanting to set up a Belly Drum. But Azumarill will take out the Ninetales with an Aqua Jet. And now we go into Galarian Slowking, just because we do have the ability to do like Sludge Bombs and things like that, which will be enough to take it out. So that's Azumarill down, and we're in a stalemate at 5-5. Here comes the Cryogonal again. We go right back into Skeledirge, because if... oh, it goes for the Terra Electric here. Sorry, I got distracted there. I'm not really sure why I went for the Terra Electric there, but that's okay. Skeledirge does go down to the Ogre Pond, though. In comes Bastiodon. We go ahead and go for the Terra Fighting. Goes for a U-turn, and the red card will force something else out, so he will not get the choice on what comes in as we set up an Iron Defense. Now we're looking pretty good right about now, although the Aurora Veil does in fact wear off. Here comes Cryogonal again. We set up another Iron Defense. The Terra Blast does not do too much, and we go for a Body Press, and that is enough to take out that Cryogonal. So we're still at over 50%, but here comes the Vikavolt here, which does threaten the Bastiodon. I still want to keep it relatively healthy to set up, try to set up later potentially. Goes for the Volt Switch, which does get a crit. Not great news for me, but here comes King Gambit, who now has an extra Fallen Ally to grab power from. And we're going right back into Bastiodon with the Chilly Reception. And we attempt to, I believe we go for a Body Press. Yep, we go for a Body Press. But we know we're not surviving another Thunderbolt, so we're going to switch right back out into Donphan. And now if he does decide to switch out that Vikavolt again, It will not take rocks and another body press, so we won't have to worry about that anymore. But Custap Berry, we go for the knockoff. It doesn't matter. We're knocking it out anyway. That puts the score at 4-3. Here comes Ogerpon again. At this point, Donphan is fodder, so we just go ahead and take the Horn Leech. It's not going to get that much recovery off of it. And we go right back into Bastiodon here. And I think we go for Body Press here just to go get damage. I think. Nope, we go for an Iron Defense. Okay. In hindsight, I probably should have went for just the straight Body Press just to get damage. But that way, you know, we don't just get picked off by King Gambit or the Gouging Fire. But, yep. So now here comes the Gouging Fire. The Gouging Fire is not particularly what I want to see in this situation where all I have left is Galarian Slowking and Satitan, and Satitan cannot terrasilize. So this isn't a particularly favorable situation for your boy. But we go into the Galarian Slowking. He reveals the Morning Sun here, which does tell me that he does have probably Sunny Day to try to override my weather and get more healing off of the Morning Sun. It did interest me, though, that he didn't go a defensive booster energy. Yep, there's the Sunny Day. If he was going to go for a Morning Sun strat, I thought maybe he'd want to go bulkier, but that's okay, too. But we are going to go down to a Flare Blitz, and that will be game number 1, because Galarian Slowking is definitely not going to be able to handle what is left. So that is going to be game number 1. Let's go ahead and just get into game number. Okay, game number 2. We got a Vikavolt lead, and we got a Galarian Slowking lead. So he goes straight for the Terra Electric just to get a little extra oomph on that Thunderbolt, but it's not even gonna be. It's not even doing 40% there. So we go ahead and go right into the Donphan here to go for a knockoff. To knock off the Assault Vest. We know that he's probably got Energy Ball, which will bring us right down to low, right into Custap range. That way, as soon as the Custap triggers, we can just set up our rocks before we go down. And the Donphan does go down after doing enough. It did enough. It set up rocks. We didn't see Rapid Spin on the Cryogonal, so it's safe to assume that he didn't bring it on it. We see a critical hit Volt Switch through the Aurora Veil, which is not great news for us. That is really unfortunate. It should not have done that much damage. But, alas, we got to try to do the best that we can. But through screens, we know that this Cryogonal cannot really do damage to us, really. Especially not without Terastallization. But here comes the Azumarill predicting the switch. We go ahead and go straight for the Torch Song to try to get a little bit of extra damage. I could have potentially went for Will-O-Wisp there, but I didn't want to risk it missing. But we go for it on the subsequent turn, and it does in fact hit. The Liquidation is not going to do hardly anything with a burn through the screens. It's just not doing enough. So now we're just in a position where we can comfortably just set up with Skeledirge. Because the Azumarill is not doing any damage, and even if we get the defense drop, we are unaware of it. We don't give a shit about it. So we're just going to slack off the damage here a little bit just to get us back up to a comfortable range. Out of crit range, basically, is what we were trying for. So now we're just going to go right back to going for Torch Songs to try to boost up our damage and try to keep us healthy for when the next Mon comes in. Yep, we go for another slack off. That way we'll be at around 75%-ish when the Azumarill does inevitably go down to the last Torch Song. And we should be in a healthy enough range to survive whatever other hits. However, the screens are down. And we know that we're probably not going to survive that Ivy Cudgel, so we're going to go straight into Bastiodon to take the Ivy Cudgel. And the red card will trigger, forcing out the Cryogonal, which we already know will not do a lot. It only does about a quarter, so we're safe to just set up now. And I believe here we go for a Body Press just to take out the Cryogonal. Yep. So that's 2 Mons down. But the main ones we're worried about is that Vikavolt and honestly the King Gambit. Those are the kind of the big threats that I was really trying to make sure I had coverage for and make sure that I had it under control. So we go into Slowking to eat the Vikavolt hits. I believe we go for a Chilly Reception here just to set up the snow again and get a pivot to get some regenerator, get some health back. And we go straight into this Titan. And we know that we outspeed, and we know that Ice Spinner will just take it out from that range, so we just go ahead and go for it. We don't get greedy with the Belly Drum and risk getting taken out by an Ivy Cudgel. So that's another threat down. We tear a ground here because I wanted to be able to KO it with an Earthquake. I didn't want to risk a range on that, so we go ahead and just tear a ground for the Earthquake, and that's 2 KOs on the Titan without Belly Drum, mind you. Here comes an Energy Ball, which is not enough to take us out. That triggers our Citrus, putting us up to 63%. And that'll grant the Titan yet another KO. I believe that is 3 now, I believe. And all that's left now is this King Gambit. And honestly, this King Gambit is really not going to particularly... yeah, we predicted the Sucker Punch there, but unfortunately he did not actually go for Sucker Punch. So I believe we go for the Earthquake now. Yeah, we go for the Earthquake now. I believe he goes for a Sucker Punch here? Oh, no, he doesn't. He doesn't go for a Sucker Punch there, but he does have revealed to have the Shuka Berry, which will allow it to survive an Earthquake, and it will be able to take us down with an Iron Head. So Titan does go down. It wasn't able to quite clinch up that late game sweep, but we do have Skeledirge here that can very easily clean up here with a Torch Song. So that is game number 2. Let's go ahead and get into a decisive game 3. All right, game 3. We have a Cryogonal lead, and we got a Donphan lead. So pretty much the same lead as game 1. We know the Sturdies is going to save us. We're going to go for Rocks, and then we're going to go for the knockoff just to get rid of its berry right before we go down to a subsequent Ice Beam, which it was revealed to have the choice specs. So that's why it didn't have the Rapid Spin on it, because it was a spec set. If it was a Rapid Spin, it probably would have heavy duty boots instead. But here comes a Chilly Reception. I think we go into Skeledirge. Yep, I was thinking either Skeledirge or Titan. I didn't remember which one. But we do go into Skeledirge here. And we predict the Azumarill switch, and I believe we go for a Will-O-Wisp. Yep, and it does hit on the switch. So now that Azumarill is effectively neutralized, and that's not going to be doing that much damage. So we're going right back into Alolan Ninetales, which takes a quarter from a Liquidation in the snow. That's okay, because we got these screens, we got Freeze Dry to handle it as well. Meanwhile, nothing on his team has heavy-duty boots, so everything and their mother is taking Stealth Rock damage on that side of the field. We go for a Moonblast, hoping for a special attack drop, but we don't actually get it. Thunderbolt will be a 2-hit KO through screens, unfortunately, so we go ahead and switch right back into Galarian Slowking. And we get hit with a crit Thunderbolt. That is 2 crits through screens. I think at this one I kind of raged a little bit out of frustration, but we go straight into Skeledirge, hoping for another crit. And then we start setting up with Torch Song, since we know that Thunderbolt can't really take us out. But he does go for a Volt Switch and goes straight back into the Azumarill. We know that a Liquidation won't be able to take us out, so I think we go ahead and go for a Slack Off here just to try to get us healthy. Yep. Goes for a Liquidation, not doing much at all. And we still got 2 more screens, 2 more turns of screens, excuse me. So now we just go right back to what we were doing last game. Just trying to set up with Skeledirge and trying to see if we can snowball and get us some momentum. Here comes the Ogerpon, which will have its Sturdy broken. But we do know, I was not 100% sure. Yep, Aurora Veil does fail here, or go away here, so I do swap to go take this Ivy Cudgel, which Bastion knows brilliantly. Ogerpon is forced to switch out, which means the Ogerpon will be left on middling HP when it does come back onto the field. We go for the Body Press, and Vikavolt does go down. do that body press. Here comes Cryogonal, which takes more damage from rocks. We go right back into Skeletor since we know that the Cryogonal cannot touch us at all. And we go ahead and, I believe, go for a slack off here. Yep, we go for a slack off. We might go for another one. Or do we go for the attack here? I don't remember. Nope, we go for the attack here, and we take out the Orcopon with a Torch Song, which will take it out. That is a huge threat for Skeletor out of the way. Here comes Gouging Fire, which does reveal that the Earthquake. So now we have its full set. It's Earthquake, Flare Blitz, Morning Sun, and Sunny Day. So no Dragon Dance, just Photosynthesis. The Skeletors will go down to a subsequent Earthquake, but that's okay because it pretty much did what it needed to do. It burned the Azumarill, it got the Gouging Fire down to low, and now we're able to take it out with a Ninetales Moonblast. And now we're looking pretty cozy right about now. Here comes the King Gambit. I wanted to set up screens. I was predicting him to go for the Iron Head, but he ends up going for the Substitute, which does in fact mean that now we can Encore him into Substitute, which will allow us to go ahead and grant us a free switch, basically. And just a Titan, we can set up a Belly Drum even more effectively now because we got the burned Azumarill. We can go ahead and set up that Belly Drum, and now there's literally nothing that Midvalley can do. We got everything we need, all the tools that we need to finish up this end game here. So now we're just gonna go for a Ice Spinner, I believe. Oh, we go for an Earthquake there. That's fine. And so now here comes a Cryogonal, which will go down to the Stealth Rocks that were placed by Donphan, and all that's left now is the King Gambit. We still have 3 more turns of screens left, so even a Choice Banded Sucker Punch is not going to do anywhere near enough damage to take us out, and even with a Shuka Berry, an Earthquake will be enough to take out the King Gambit. That is week number 7. Your boys, the Phoenix Primals, still undefeated, 7-0. Catch you guys next week, where hopefully we keep the streak going when we face, I believe, the Simi-Winnie Sears. So catch you guys next week.